All right, everybody. So welcome back. So the Ministry of Labour joins in the observation of World Day Against Child Labour on June 12, 2025. So to tell us more, we do have in studio this morning Tishon Hobbs, Child Labour Ambassador, and pretty soon we are going to be joined by another representative, Paula Achaiba, the Labour Inspector 2 at the Ministry. Tishon, good morning and thank you very much for coming this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So Tishon, let's talk a little bit about being a child labour ambassador. When we speak about that, just tell us about what do you do as a child labour ambassador?
As a child labour ambassador, I raise awareness against child labour, meaning I raise awareness against children who work under the ages of 16, which will be doing like construction. If you're under the ages of 16 and doing construction, that could be a hazardous work.
Yeah.
So I will most likely be helping students or children in my community to stop going through child labor and have the right to an education.
Yeah. So how long have you been a child labour ambassador?
I believe it's an year exactly.
Oh, okay.
1 year.
Okay. So is it that it's for a year that you are going to be the child labour ambassador, right?
An exact year so far.
Oh, it's an exact year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about. You say that you would have had to visit communities.
Well, not exactly.
Yeah.
I will be in my school and we have a child labour ambassador club.
All right.
Which will promote awareness throughout the school, throughout the students, teachers and staff. However, in my community, people will hear about child labour because that's where I'm from.
Right.
And there's other child labour ambassadors that do the same as well.
Yeah. You think there is an understanding when it comes to child labour and what is child labour? You think that there's an understanding among people, let's say at the school level, where the school that you attend, and also at the community level, that people believe that there is a problem of child labour in Trinidad and Tobago?
I believe some people tend to brush it off.
Right.
However, it is a very serious matter between children, because as a child not having the right to an education, the right to freedom of speech in a respectful manner, of course, it tends to affect how you grow up in life.
Yeah.
So being able to have an education will lead to better financial options in the future.
Yeah. So is it that, because I think that we do have a culture of child labor in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, just yesterday I saw a child, and that child was selling limes, I believe, at one of those traffic lights, and it was during the time that the child should have been at school. But some people would see that as just, well, the child is just trying to help out his or her family. But I think that the point that I'm making is that very simple things that people believe may not be child labor, they can be defined as child labor in Trinidad and Tobago. I think that's the point that I'm making. And you get that feeling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we do have on the line right now, we do have Labour Inspector 2, Paula Achaiba. Ms. Achaiba, good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Mother. Thank you for having us, the Ministry of Labour and our child labour ambassadors this morning on your program, and good morning to Trinidad and Spain.
Yeah, Tishon has taken the lead this morning, Ms. Achaiba, and he's doing very, very well. So, Ms. Achaiba, what's the message here this morning?
Well, the message is that this week we're commemorating World Day Against Child Labor on June 12th. Now, this is a global commemoration, and the theme this year from the ILO is progress is clear and there's more to do, so let's speed up the effort. Because of that, the ministry would have launched several media campaigns, school competitions, and we continue to do what we're doing this morning in terms of hosting sensitization and public awareness camps to bring awareness on child labor in Trinidad and Tobago.
When it comes to child labor in Trinidad and Tobago, because Tishon and I, we were speaking just now about the culture in Trinidad and Tobago and certain things that we practice as culture, as we practice as, you know, this is just a small thing. The child is helping out his or her family. You think that the culture is changing and people are seeing the danger, the risk in having their children involved in such activities?
Yes, Marla. I do believe that the culture is changing. It's a bit slow, yes, but it's changing because, as you mentioned, culturally, we do not see an issue with child labor, or what the definitions of child labor are. It's because we would have done it in the past as parents when we were younger. So culturally, we accept it as a norm. However, it is worrying for the Ministry of Labor simply because while child labor isn't rampant, one child in child labor is one child too many. And yes, as citizens, we may patronize children. Now, we've seen situations of child labor being more rampant in terms of parents sending children out to sell on the street. Now, yes, street vending is it's becoming a bit more prominent. The risk here is that children could be physically harmed, children could be knocked down. I mean, we've seen them on the highways in and out of traffic selling. We've seen them at certain traffic lights selling as well. And it's a risk in terms of accidents, in terms of kidnapping, in terms of even trafficking. So yes, we have seen that reports have been coming in more and more. We're still experiencing some underreporting, and that's why we're doing what we're doing this morning and for the rest of the week, and in general what the ministry is doing in terms of sensitizing the public on what the dangers of child labor are, how to spot it, and how to report it.
Is your ministry in receipt of data as it relates to child labor in Trinidad and Tobago? And I asked that question to ask how serious is the situation in Trinidad and Tobago. I was saying to Sean here just yesterday, I saw this young boy really selling limes at a traffic light in St. Augustine during school hours. And I see that we do have a number for the hotline there, but I may say, and this is not based on data, this is just based on what I see, that maybe 90% of the people who witness child labor on a daily basis are not going to use the line to call anybody at all, because there's this level of acceptance as it relates to child labor in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, we have been receiving data. The Ministry of Labor, through our communications unit, would have done a perception survey. It was an online perception survey, and it would have brought in information. Several persons would have called in, would have emailed, would have used our social media platforms to provide us with information, and based on that, the Labour Inspectorate Unit would have gone out and conducted observations and investigations to determine whether what the observations were in fact cases of child labor.
Yeah.
And following that, we would have had referrals to the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago.
Where are you seeing the most cases of child labor?
Mostly in the agricultural sectors thus far. As mentioned, the street vending is where we're seeing most of the active cases of child labor. And while it's still underreported, for lack of a better term, it's still visible in those sectors.
I want to ask this question this way, because I think that there is still, and this is just what I see on a daily basis, that some people are still turning a blind eye to this situation of child labor in Trinidad and Tobago. Why is it their business and everyone's business to have concerns about child labor?
For Marlon, it is everyone's business because basically we have seen that children have been employed in several types of business. And the situation is where parents would have taken these children out of school, denying them their education or forcing them to balance school and work life. Now, as we mentioned, it's a risk in terms of physical exhaustion, children being on the streets, children working in general, being exposed to the sunlight, out to the elements, not being properly hydrated, or not even being properly dressed in order to protect them from the elements of the weather. It's also detrimental to children, their mental well-being. So you may end up with cases of low self-esteem. You may end up with children feeling inferiority or inadequate when it comes to their peers. And these effects are long-term. And it perpetuates the cycle of poverty. So it is a concern. And what is important and what we always want to emphasize is that education is first and foremost a main way out of poverty. And once child labor exists and children are denied that basic right to education, we will continue the cycle of poverty.
How do you define child labor? Because I know that there are people who are looking at us right now who are going to say, well, all the child is doing is helping the family, you know. They have to make a living.
Well, the legal age for employment in Trinidad and Tobago is 16. Therefore, anybody under the age of 16 should not be employed. Now, the only exceptions there would be persons working outside of school hours or on their vacation time in family-run businesses. But essentially, child labor is work that is mentally, physically, socially, or morally dangerous and is harmful to children. It interferes with their schooling by depriving them completely of the opportunity to attend school or obliging them to leave school prematurely or requiring them to balance school and work life with excessive and heavy work. And it is detrimental to their health, it is detrimental to their mentality, it's detrimental to children, and it should not be happening in Trinidad and Tobago. And yes, while we discuss that culturally, it's acceptable because we say, well, they're learning responsibility. Yes, they learn responsibility. However, we deny them their basic right to an education, their basic right to their childhood, their basic right to be able to play, to interact, to recreation. And that is where it's wrong.
Are there repercussions for the parents or the guardians who have involved their children in these acts?
Yes, there are. So we do have penalties under the Children's Act, Fortin of the Children's Act, that is the employment of young persons. So for parents or guardians condoning child labor, there is a penalty of $5,000. And for employers engaging children in child labor, there are penalties of $25,000 and imprisonment.
Yeah. Mr. Chaiba, is there anything else you'd like to tell us before you leave us this morning?
Well, our theme at the Ministry of Labor, with regards to child labor, is to spot child labor, stop child labor. And we'd like to encourage Fernando and Tobago, if something doesn't fit right with you, give us a call at the Labour Inspectorate Unit. Our numbers are 625-8478, options 2 or 3. You can email us at labor.inspector@gov.gt. You can contact Childline, which is a 24-hour hotline, at 131 or 800-4321. You can contact the Children's Authority. Their hotline is 996 or 800-2014. You can contact the Counter Trafficking Unit. You can contact the Occupational Safety and Health Authority. We are on all social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. So you can get information to us, and based on the information received, the Labour Inspectorate Unit will investigate those complaints to determine whether there is a case of child labour and then refer to the necessary authorities. We have collaboration with the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Social Development, Counter Trafficking Unit, Child Protection Unit, Childline, Children's Authority. There's several agencies that we have that can provide assistance to children and their families.
Yeah. Mr. Chaiba, Tishon, thank you very much for this discussion this morning. It's a discussion that has to take place. As I say, I think that there has been a culture to promote this type of behavior in Trinidad and Tobago, and we thank you very much for the work that you all continue to do. Yeah? Thank you for coming. Mr. Chaiba, thank you very much. Bye for now. All right, everybody. We are going to a very short break. We are coming back.